Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more waterfowl patterning. And today we've got another very interesting combination that I'm really excited to see how it does. Because we've brought out this setup with these shells before a couple of weeks ago with some really good results. But now we've got those shells in a little bit different shot size. And I have a feeling that we might just see even better results than what we had seen previously. But as for the setup I've brought out here today, I brought out this old guy. This is a 1951 Marlin Model 90. It's an over under 12 gauge. It has 30-inch barrels and it's got the mod full choke configuration. So that top barrel is a full choke and the bottom barrel is a mod choke. I will put the actual constrictions of the two chokes that I measured right up here in the top of the screen so you guys can see exactly what they are. But definitely a very interesting old school setup that actually performed really nicely a couple weeks ago with the shells we've got here today, just in a different shot size. So I expect to see some more really nice results from it, even though it's a little bit rough around the edges, as you can see. It might be a little bit old and banged up, but if it can still perform, then we really ain't got much to complain about. And as for those shells I've brought out here today, I got out some more of the Salt Creek Vintage Waterfowl shells. These ones are a 12 gauge, 2.5 inch, 1 1/8 ounce payload of bismuth number 4s are what we're going to be running today. They're moving about 1300 feet per second and they are the 6100 psi loads, so you can run them in all those older vintage shotguns that you might want to take out hunting. So definitely a very interesting shell, and big thank you to Salt Creek for sending some of these in. I'm not sponsored or paid to tell you anything specific about them or anything, but they just make a really good shell, so we should see some nice results out of these. And as for the test today, we're going to do it the same as we always do with these waterfowl loads, except I think since we have a double barrel or over under shotgun, we need to take a shot through each barrel so we can get an idea of how they perform through each choke constriction that it has. So I have two duck targets set up at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity. So we'll take a shot from each barrel and see what kind of results we can get with the vintage waterfowl bismuth 4s today. Thinking we should see some pretty nice patterns, but let's head over here and take these shots and just see what we're able to get. Okay, let's take a peek at our chronograph and see what it gave us. Our first shot through the top full choke barrel gave us 1251, and our second shot through the modified choke bottom barrel gave us 1291. The boss claim is 1300, so this last one was pretty much right on the money. The first one was a touch lower than their claim, but still mid to high 1200s. I think is pretty reasonable, all things considered. Definitely not much to complain about up here, but what kind of a pattern did they actually give us down there at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see what we got. All right, now we're down here at our 40-yard targets. So let's take a look and see what we actually got. We'll start off with the first shot we took with the top full choke barrel, and this is what we got. I do think we were a touch off to the right, and I actually do believe that that specific shotgun, the top barrel does shoot a little to the right, and I probably just forgot about it since it's been a couple weeks since I actually shot it. But still, we can very clearly see we have a smoked duck there all day long. A bunch of them right through the chest cavity, and if we would have moved that pattern over just a little bit and centered it up, it would be even more of them right through the chest there. So absolutely a dead duck all day long, and a very nice overall pattern. We definitely have a little bit of tightening in the core area. Right around his top wing there, I'd say is roughly where our core is, just to the right of his body. And it's definitely a little bit hotter with pellets there than it is around the edges, but the edges don't go completely wild either. They're pretty nice and even spread all the way around. Definitely no huge, very noticeable strings or voids or anything. It's definitely not nearly as full of a pattern as we saw with the 5s that we tested a couple weeks ago, but these are 4s. You have less pellets in the shell, but clearly they can still hold a pretty good pattern. For a 70-year-old shotgun with a vintage style load like that, you can't really argue with that kind of a result. That's a pattern that's going to absolutely hammer out at 40 and 45 yards on any kind of duck that you would ever take a shot at. So although this is a very nice pattern, definitely not a whole lot to complain about, that's for sure. I think I still prefer the modified choke barrel just a little bit more, just like I did last time. So let's scoot over and take a look at that pattern. All right, and here's the modified choke barrel pattern. And this one, I think we were a little bit better centered up because I think that bottom barrel does shoot pretty much right on the money with where my bead is. And although we might have had a little bit larger of a spread right through our core, definitely not quite as noticeably tight in the core as what we saw with the full, which does make sense. We have a really nice even spread of them across the core area and out into the edges of the pattern as well. As you can see, this paper is 36 inches wide by probably about 42 to 45 inches tall, and there's really not much area on that paper that duck could have flown to and got away from you. But it's not a pattern that's blown so far open that it's just all over the place either. It's a really nice and uniform spread throughout 95% of the pattern, which is really what I like to see. That's a pattern that you could reach out just a little bit farther to that 45 yard or so range and still have enough pellets on the target to get it done without having a bunch of voids. But if you're decoy hunting, especially with an older shotgun like that, at 20, 25, 30 yards, that's still going to give you quite a bit more wiggle room than what the full choke would. So I really like how this modified choke barrel is performing on this Model 90 with these shells. So definitely another very impressive result here, and I don't think we can really argue with it too much. No complaints from me, and these are some patterns that I would not be scared in the slightest to hunt with, that's for sure. Okay, here's one of the wads out of those shells, and I believe this one came from the full choke barrel. I tried to find the other one, but the grass is so long because it's rained for a week straight and I haven't been able to cut it. So it kind of is what it is. Either way, from what we had seen previously, both wads are going to look the exact same. They don't really seem to care whether they go through a mod or a full choke, at least in this setup. They look the same. And this wad in particular, there's nothing stuck down in there. There's no rips or tears, no damage. It looks pretty well perfect. So I definitely think it did its job, and there's nothing really too funny to see about this one. All right, y'all. Well, what do you think about those patterns right there? Definitely some very nice performance, that's for sure. For a 70-year-old shotgun with some vintage style loads, you can't really argue with that kind of a result. It doesn't matter if it was 70 years ago or today, that combination could still absolutely hammer some ducks. So once again, the Model 90 really performed well, and the Salt Creek shells did what they really always do, is give us some very nice patterns. But as always, let me know your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Do you have an old Marlin Model 90? And if so, do you still hunt with it? Have you tested any of these Salt Creek Vintage Waterfowl shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen out of them? Would you hunt with a combo or a pattern like that? Let me know all that down below, as well as maybe what other chokes or setups might you want to see these shells run through, including modern stuff as well. So let me know all that down below. Either way, definitely a very nice result today, and one you could absolutely take out hunting. But with that being said, I've got some more tests to get done for you guys before we got some rain moving in, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we got the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.